go there once again. Decided it was time to talk about Iran, I guess. Just felt like it, so, why not? Was watching Sargon of Akkad video saying that he is not monitoring the situation, and you know what? Me either. I only just heard about it, I think I heard about it half a day after it actually happened. I was like, Ayatollah Khomeini is gone. So, yeah, I think there's a couple of angles that I haven't really heard many people talk about. Because most people are either saying, "Oh, this is great," what is it, FAFO, however you want to say it, or this is terrible. I can't believe this. This isn't just war theory. Trump did a bad. He's the worst guy ever. And everything in between. But I don't know. I feel like this is much less cut and dry, because over the years, I heard about all of Bush's great failures in the Middle East, and some of Obama's as well, and then as well as I've learned more about our world building back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, mainly the 50s and 60s, honestly. I think it actually makes things a little more gray in general, or maybe a little more black and white, depending on how you think about it. So generally, I would say it's been a good thing, and I say that very tentatively. It's hard to really say yet, but I think what makes it hard for me to really say is because in the Bible, especially mainly in the Old Testament, it's said that our leaders are put there by God. I believe it says it in the New Testament as well, but it's hard to say because I don't have it pulled up in front of me. I am driving, but it says our leaders are put there by God. They may be elected by the people or appointed by, a council or whatever it may be, but they're put there by God. They're there for a reason, and so we need to pay. We owe to Caesar what we give to Caesar what is owed. Good gosh, I could not think of how to say that. And such and such. So even though I don't know, maybe not everybody liked Caesar, but you're still supposed to follow him. So in a similar vein, we kind of have to follow what Trump is giving us. So whether or not you like him, if you're Christian, we should be, maybe trying to, if you don't like him, trying to change that during the next election, especially considering he's not eligible for re-election. Or you should be just, seeing what he's giving us and trying to make the best out of it. And there's lots of stories in the Bible of God's appointed leaders, like leaders that God specifically puts up in high places where he goes to war against other kingdoms. So I don't think you can actually say that, this is obviously a terrible action, for sure. I see this as more of, maybe God has put Trump in a place for a reason. Maybe he's gotten rid of Ayatollah Khomeini for a reason. Maybe he's gotten rid of Nicolas Maduro for a reason. It seems to me like these, at least in Venezuela, it seems like it's been a much better action for most people in the world. Most Venezuelans are going to be much happier now. Most Americans are going to probably benefit from it in some way, maybe in relation to oil. But generally, I think it's actually much better for Venezuela and the rest of South America than it even is for the United States. And I think Ayatollah Khomeini, his departure from this mortal coil, will actually be benefiting the people in Iran and around Iran much more than it will the U.S. Much, much more. Because Iran doesn't really have quite as much oil as Venezuela does. So it's not like we're really getting much out of this. Sorry about my hand in the way. But, and then on the flip side, you could say, well, this is not good. You're not really supposed to just randomly kill people, even if you don't like them. I know it's very insightful commentary right here. But if you consider all the bad things he's done, Khomeini, then, I think technically he has it coming. Now, you could say, well, pretty much all leaders have blood on their hands, so all leaders have it coming, right? Well, that's where we go back to the Bible and say, well, do they? I don't know. I'm not God. I don't know what God's plans are for any of these leaders, but I don't think they're all doing anything inherently wrong. Like, for example, I think that's how it makes this whole situation like, well, maybe it's okay. Maybe that was the intended plan all along. So I don't really know. But I think this will be better than not. I don't know that for sure yet, because like I said, this is going to need some time, but I think this will be better for the world than it will not be better for the world. And partially I say that because of political history, not political history, but history in general. A lot of the world building that we've done in the U.S., you can kind of see a difference from where it goes wrong and where it goes right. So a good example of it going right is the first invasion of Iraq by the U.S. I believe it was the first, because that one lasted a very short period of time. And if you don't know any of the history behind it, the reason why we were invading Iraq is because Iraq actually invaded Kuwait. Kuwait and Iraq are both members of the Arab League. The Arab League is a real body that exists between pretty much every Arab nation in the world. And they actually have a mutual defense pact where all of the members of the Arab League are supposed to come together in defense of... They're supposed to come together in the defense of any of their members that are being attacked. And the leader of Iraq, was it Hussein? I can't remember, but I believe it was Hussein, who went ahead and invaded Kuwait next door for its land and resources. Mainly, I think, resources, because Kuwait does not have that much land. But they also have extra land against the sea, so maybe they wanted that. Couldn't say for sure. I don't know all the details. But they went ahead and invaded Kuwait. And then the Arab League, being kind of incompetent, didn't do anything about it. And so the U.S. being demanded to step in, since no one else was, we went ahead and stepped in, started to invade Iraq. I believe we ran through Iraq in virtually record time and then got out of there. Well, I mean, okay, I don't know about the got out of there part. Maybe we were staying there for a little bit. But essentially, we stopped our full-on military occupation pretty quickly. So that's a good example of it going right. I mean, and then on the flip side, you have... I'm trying to think of the worst example. I haven't really paid much attention to the worst examples, but generally I would say maybe Vietnam. Yeah, Vietnam's probably one of the better ones. It seems to me like the people of Vietnam were not very keen on the people we were backing in Vietnam, in the Vietnam War. So whenever we went back and forth between I think the North. I need to brush up on my history, to be honest. But the actual people of Vietnam were not very satisfied with the political party that we were backing. They were more of like a U.S. plant than they really were a natural extension of the Vietnamese people. And so I think that's really the crux of the issue, is that most of our world building that hasn't been successful hasn't been successful because the people we're supporting they don't speak for the actual people of the country. They don't, they're not for it for whatever reason. Like whenever elections have ever been started in the Middle East, they always end up electing a militant leader, a dictator for the most part. Like I think in, I want to say Egypt, El-Sisi, I believe he was elected initially, and now I think he's being elected ever since. But he's not much of a democratic leader, and that's because the people of the Middle East, for the most part, don't care about democracy. They really don't. Democracy is not for every country, and so building up a democracy in the Middle East is not going to help. Same reason why the Vietnamese seem to be so disillusioned with their current ways of living around the time of the Vietnamese War that they would rather have a communist lead their country, which at the time they did not have quite as much of a bad rap as they do today. And so that brings us back to today. So, for example, Nicolas Maduro. I don't see any real Venezuelans saying, "Oh no, this is terrible. I can't believe our brave leader Nicolas Maduro, who's been like people in the Middle East, re-electing himself every year just to sell out the country to the gangs and drug dealers and smugglers and so on and so forth." I don't see people complaining that Nicolas Maduro was deposed. And that's probably why Trump did it. Because he has a country that hates their current leader. The current leader is obviously doing things that are very terrible and very immoral. And so he deposes the leader. Bam. The country is already in a better state. Now, we'll see how that goes. Because if we're, still in the country world building and not letting Venezuela actually try and do it on their own now, hopefully having learned the lesson, then it could certainly go south still. But as of right now, it seems like they're doing all right. I think Iran is going to be a similar situation where we've seen so much resistance to the Ayatollah and the mullahs in the past, I think, 50 years? Maybe not quite, maybe a little more like 40. I believe the Bomb Iran song was made in the early 80s. But yeah, I can't remember exactly when I think it was the Shah was deposed. I want to say that might have been late 70s. Sounds about right. Around when Carter was around. Carter would never let anything go without making sure that they were in a worse state first. Poor guy. He was a nice guy. Not the best politician. And that would be an understatement of saying he's not the best politician. But regardless, I believe the people of Iran want this change. They have not been able to enact this change. And so I think this is going to go better than it will worse. That was a very roundabout way of getting to the point that I think Iran's going to be in a good spot. And so I think that is sort of what determines whether or not what Trump did was good or bad. So I think people are really, they're jumping on this too quickly. Because Venezuela and Iran could go bad. They could go sour, south, all the words you want to use. It'll just take time to find out. I think now that we've done our part, we should be letting go of Iran for sure. Venezuela, I think we can have our hands in the cookie jar just a little bit more because they are in our Western Hemisphere, and I think Teddy Roosevelt's big stick, his what did he enforce? The Roosevelt Doctrine, I guess it was. Monroe Doctrine, maybe. One of those. I think that is a pretty decent policy because South America is, they're kind of crazy. So sometimes they need a little bit of watching, a little bit of overwatch, just to make sure they're doing all right. So yeah, I think we need to think about all these situations a little bit harder than we have been. Anyways, I'll stop talking in circles. So. Hopefully this helps someone. Hopefully you don't think I'm stupid, and if you do think I'm stupid, you're probably right. Bye.